Steve Cunningham had some choice words for Antonio Tarver regarding his multiple failed drug tests. In a recent interview with the Cornerman radio show, Steve Cunningham has talked about the possibility of actually suing Antonio Tarver for assault and battery, and I believe he is going ahead with that lawsuit. He says that it's not just about trying to take money from anyone. He says that if he was to win the lawsuit, the money would be donated to the Heart Foundation. And for those of you who don't know, Steve Cunningham's daughter has had a lot of problems with her heart, and she's been battling for her life for quite a while now. So that's what he would do should he win that lawsuit. But he said some very interesting things in this interview, which I'll leave a link to in the description below. I'm sure you can also find, because the interview I'm leaving a link to is the written form, the typed out form. I'm sure you can find the actual radio recorded version as well if you look online. But anyway, it says some interesting things here. He says that this would be to set a standard or a bar in terms of suing Antonio Tarver. This would be to set a standard or a bar. He says this is what should happen every time a fighter does this to keep the sport clean, i.e. they should be sued. He says PEDs, steroids, and illegal things are rampant in boxing. I can't say names or I would get sued because there is no evidence. Boxers talk in locker rooms, in camp, and you see things. There is a lot of illegal use going on in boxing, period. Now, where he says he can't say names because he could get sued, one thing you have to understand is that people sue other people, even when the person doing the suing is guilty. That happens all the time, by the way, because it's not about the truth. When it comes to a court of law, it's not about the truth. It's about what you can prove. You might know someone's guilty because you saw them do something. But unless you have the physical evidence, unless you had them on tape or had the paraphernalia, if you accuse them, even though you saw them and you know what happened, they could sue you and win successfully. All right. So just because Cunningham doesn't have evidence, it don't mean that he doesn't know for a fact that there are certain people out there who are definitely on steroids and all types of other PEDs. Just to set the record straight. Anyone that knows anything about law, you'll know what I'm saying is 100% accurate. Yeah, there are all types of lawsuits where guilty people sue people for defamation or whatever it is, for slander or whatever, even though they're guilty. Anyway, some other things he says in there. He says that I have a lot to say about the situation, so I'm going to be talking tonight. First, the brother, he's talking about Antonio Tarver, already got caught once. He got caught 3 years ago and was suspended for a year and fined. Then he gets caught again. Let's hypothetically say what he is saying is true and the samples were contaminated. Wow. Then you would be the most unlucky dude of all time. There were 2 samples. So both samples were contaminated. Both came back with the same thing. Yeah, they were contaminated with the stuff that he took. That's what they were contaminated with. What else is Tarver going to say? My wife, who is my manager, Livy, is so intelligent. When we were at the press conference, she looked at his press release when he got popped in the Kaede fight. That's the previous time he was caught for PEDs. It was almost a verbatim word for word of what he said. Oh, I never took anything. It's the same thing. Tarver, he is a talker. He got his fight with Roy Jones because he talked. Then he talks his way into a rematch. He talked his butt off in our fight. That's what he is. He's a talker. He's a good marketer. He markets himself superbly. Now, Cunningham was asked if he would like to replace Tarver as part of the PBC broadcast team on Spike if Tarver's contract is terminated due to the controversy. And Steve Cunningham says he's available. He says, I don't know what's going on. I haven't talked to the New Jersey State Athletic Commission. The commission hasn't released their release on what's going on yet. We are just waiting. But as he says, he's willing to step in and fill Tarver's shoes on PBC. I hope he gets the gig, to be honest with you. Then he was also asked about whether the failed drug tests put a question mark over Antonio Tarver's wins. And he says, what was Tarver known for his whole career? His left hand. With this guy popped 2 times in the years, these past 5 years have been real strict on illegal drugs. Now you have to question all of his wins by knockout, all of his big wins. He fought a guy named Chris Johnson back around 2001. He hurt Chris Johnson pretty bad. The only thing that made Tarver special was his powerful, blessed hands. Maybe he was on the stuff back then, but no one caught him. Now it's catching up to him. Like you said, he knew he had some extra oomph that should have put me down or out. And again, he's asked about whether Tarver deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. He says, people are calling him a future Hall of Famer. We need to check that too. His morality in boxing is ridiculous. He has no respect for other fighters of the sport that we love. He should not be in the Hall of Fame. He is suspect now. Very suspect. So go check out this interview. And actually, I'm looking at the bottom of the page here, and it does have a link to the actual Blog Talk Radio, so you can go listen to it for yourselves. Very, very interesting and insightful stuff there from Steve Cunningham, particularly when he's talking about the prevalence of performance-enhancing drugs in boxing. Many, many fighters have come out over the years and said that it is absolutely rampant in boxing. And you have to figure that it's more rampant in boxing than it is in most other sports, because of the fact that boxing, particularly in places like the United States, is so unregulated. There is no overarching regulatory body in the United States. Different states have their own rules, different rules on boxing. There are different protocols and all types of stuff. And anyone who's, looked into drug testing in boxing will know that the quality of the drug testing varies greatly from state to state in America. And it's the same worldwide, really. If you look at Vladimir Klitschko, he has never been tested before any of his world title fights, as far as I'm aware. Never. He gets tested once, and that's after the fight. That is shocking. This is one of the top fighters in the world, one of the most dominant champions with the most money. And this guy's not doing Olympic-style drug testing. He is only having one test after the fight. And anyone that knows anything about PEDs will tell you that testing someone once after the fight is as good as not testing them at all. What's the point? Before Klitschko's fight with Kubrat Pulev came out. You can go look up these articles, just Google it. Pulev came out and said that he was tested about 6 or 7 times before the Klitschko fight, and Klitschko wasn't tested once before the fight. Extraordinary. Absolutely extraordinary for things like that to be going on, people. And this is rampant in boxing. And those fighters at the top, the guys who are cash cows, are the guys who are in a position where they can get away with potentially taking performance-enhancing drugs. They're in a better position because they can form relationships with particular testing organizations. Maybe they have a very powerful promoter. They have people who can get testing organizations or commissions to look the other way, turn a blind eye, slip a couple dollars in their pocket, or Deutschmarks or pounds or whatever the case may be. And it's all hunky-dory. So let me know what you think about this, people. Have a read or have a listen to this Steve Cunningham interview for yourselves. What do you think should happen to Antonio Tarver? I certainly hope that Cunningham manages to sue him successfully. That's if Tarver is actually guilty. And he looks guilty here. We have to wait for the Athletic Commission, but can we trust the Athletic Commission? We don't know. But the guy's been caught multiple times now, so you have to start questioning it. You really do. I hope that he sues him successfully, and I hope that Cunningham gets the Tarver gig. And look, I'm not hating on Tarver in terms of Tarver's gig on Spike PBC. I'm not hating on Tarver. I think he's an excellent commentator, one of my favorite commentators. But Steve Cunningham's a pretty good commentator too. And unlike Antonio Tarver, he ain't been popped for steroids all these different times. So, that's just my feeling on it. Let me know how you feel. Drop your comments in the comment section below as usual. It's happening. I'm out.